Hi, I'm Dave Monty, and welcome to my video series, Everything Villages. I keep hearing the statement that I'm going to wait for prices to drop in the villages before we buy. And in this video, I'm going to show you that in most cases, that is actually not a sound financial decision. So stay tuned. Before we get started, if you like this video, please hit like. If you like my channel, please subscribe to it. Both of those actions help these videos reach more people, and I greatly appreciate it. Also, if you would like a free copy of my 42-page guide, Buying and Selling a Home in the Villages, just email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com. I've also written a guide that's specific to listing a home here in the villages. Really, we talk about how to maximize the profit when you sell your home here. So if you'd like a copy of that, you can also email me right here and I'll send it out to you. I was sitting in training a couple of weeks ago and a trainer made a good point that kind of hit home with me, which is your clients a lot of times will be working with a financial planner. That financial planner is going to really focus on stocks, bonds, insurance policies, annuities, etc. But a majority of Americans' wealth is tied up in real estate, in their home. And if you want to be a good real estate agent, you do need to provide some sound financial advice when it comes to real estate. And that's what the attempt of this video is going to do. Again, I keep hearing we're waiting for prices to go down in the villages. So let's talk about why that's probably not a sound financial decision in most cases. The first question is going to be, should you wait? And I bet you think, hey, as a real estate agent who needs to sell homes and make a living, that you're going to say no. And I am going to say no. But I'm not going to have you take my word for it. I'm going to show you the math and how that works. Now, it really depends. The theme of this entire video is going to be, where's the safest place to put your money if you're going to keep it in real estate? Now, your local market's going to be different than everybody else's local market. But if you start taking a look at the numbers, overall, the villages is probably one of the safest places to put your real estate money. And I'm going to step through all those cases. Now, one of the places where it might not make sense is a second home at this point. So if you're looking at a second home and you think that the prices will come down, I can't guarantee you if they're going to go up or down, but if you do think that they're going to come down, does it make sense for you to take a big chunk of money and go buy a second home and put it into a market where the prices are going to drop? The answer is probably not. Okay? But if you need to sell a home to move to the villages, or if you are moving within the villages and need to sell a home, where's the safest place to put your money? Okay? And my opinion is that your safest place isn't in your local market where it is today. Most likely it's here in the villages, and I'm going to make a case for that. All right. Very first question is, will prices drop? Well, the answer is maybe. All the experts are calling for a housing recession. That just means fewer homes are going to be sold. It doesn't mean that prices will fall. We're going to talk about what causes prices to fall. But the one thing that is the basis for this video is that most likely, very good chance that if prices do fall, they will fall less in the villages. So this is a much safer place to put your money. So what's affecting the market right now? Well, the big thing is interest rate. When the Fed started increasing interest rates, obviously the mortgage rates started to go up. And we're still fairly low. We're below average on the interest rates. The problem is we are coming from ridiculously low historical values on the interest rate. So these moderate interest rates that we're looking at right now kind of look like a shock from where we were a few months ago. It is a significant impact. If I take a $400,000 house and I put 20% down on it, I'm going to take out a $320,000 loan. The difference between a 30-year fixed mortgage at 3.5% and 5.5% is about $450 to $500. So that's not insignificant, but most likely that's going to pale in comparison to the financial impact of sitting on your hands and not moving your money into a safer location. So let's talk about why prices drop. Prices will start to drop when supply starts to increase and demand starts to come down, and that gap widens. And that's when prices drop. In the villages, what we're experiencing right now is actually a slowdown in the market, but both supply and demand is slowly coming down. There's fewer people putting their homes on the market currently, and there are fewer buyers here. But pricing has remained fairly constant. So let's take a look at both sides of that equation, both supply and demand. Well, let's look at the demand side. There's two big things that influence demand. One is the baby boomers. There's 10,000 new retirees a day. That is a huge number. That's 3.5 to 4 million people a year that are retiring. So being a retirement community, the biggest one in the world, you're going to attract a lot of these baby boomers. So the demand from that demographic is still very strong. Baby boomers or retirees in general are also not affected by recessions half as much. Now, they are affected by inflation, which, there's a lot of inflation right now. So, some retirees are going to feel that pinch. But in general, retirees have diversified portfolios. They don't lose jobs because they're retired. Often they pay cash for homes so that they're not affected by interest rates. So you still get a strong pool of buyers. So let's look at the next aspect of demand. It's the fact that the average villager moves 3 times after they've moved here. And a lot of people will think that, well, they didn't buy in the right location at the first time, or they didn't really like the house, or they didn't like this. And it's like, really, it comes down to the fact that there's a lot of compelling events that happen at this stage of people's lives, mainly due to health issues. So often you see people moving down or moving because of a change of circumstances in their lives. And those are involuntary moves. And there's a constant turnover of homes here that continue to happen. Will that go down slightly? Yes, it probably will, because there are some people who make optional moves within the villages. But just know that a lot of them are not voluntary. Now let's look at the other side of the equation, the supply side. Last year, approximately 7,000 homes were sold in the villages. 60% of those homes were new. So there's one developer here, and they control a big chunk of the supply, and they can throttle back if they need to throttle back in order to maintain a little bit of balance between supply and demand, which will maintain pricing here. So you have baby boomers that are retiring in droves. You have a lot of turnover of homes that happen for involuntary reasons within the villages, which keep demand up. And you've got one large developer who can control supply. Now, does it work? You only have to do is go back and look at our last recession. And in 2008, 9, and 10, the rest of the country depreciated by about 33% and only 9% in the villages. That's a 3-to-1 ratio. Right now, for the math that I'm going to show you, I'm going to assume that this next recession is half the impact that the one in 2008 and 2009 happened. And the reason I'm doing that is that the last recession was caused by the housing market. And the housing market dropped because of subprime lending. People who should not have gotten loans got loans. And when all those loans became due, you had millions of people foreclosing on their homes, which greatly impacted pricing across the United States. But in the villages, much less. However, in this math, I'm going to hold this 3-to-1 ratio. Okay, so let's look at a few scenarios. I'm not going to look at all of them. I'm going to look at the ones where it makes sense for you to actually pull the trigger if you're at all thinking about retiring soon into the villages. Now let's take a look if you're going to just sell your home wherever you are right now, and you're going to take that money and put it directly into another home in the villages. And say you were able to make that equal swap, and then we hit the recession. Okay, so if you remained in your home, I'm going to assume, remember I said half of that 33%, I'm going to go 15% here. So if I have a 15% depreciation of your current home, and let's look at the $400,000 house, you are going to lose about $600,000 of equity in that. So let's look at the $400,000 house. With a 15% depreciation of home values, you're going to lose about $60,000 worth of equity in your home. If you sell now and put it into a home in the villages, and we maintain that 3-to-1 ratio, then that means that there's only going to be a 5% decrease in home values. So then that $40,000 home, that's only $20,000 versus the $60,000. So if you don't move, the hit to you is a $40,000 hit in equity of your home. Okay, so again, this is about taking your real estate dollars and putting them into a safer location. And the villages is incredibly safe because of those factors that we just talked about. Let's look at another scenario. Assume you're downsizing into the villages. So downsizing in general this is a great time to downsize because, again, you're going to take some of your money out of the market. You're going to sell your home for $400,000. You're going to take $100,000 and put it in your pocket so you can have money during retirement. And then you're going to go buy a $300,000 home. Well, I'm going to take that same 15% depreciation, stayed in that $400,000 home, and that's still $60,000. But now I'm going to take a 5% depreciation on a home where you downsize to a $300,000 home. That depreciation on a $300,000 home is only $15,000 on that 5%. So that's a $45,000 hit if you don't act now. Okay, so right now it's a great time to downsize. Let's take a look at it if you're moving within the villages. Obviously, it's not as big of an impact because you don't have that 3-to-1 ratio anymore. It's very even. So you're going to get still that $400,000 home. You're still going to get that $20,000 drop at 5%. And on that $300,000, you're going to have that 5% drop again. It's just less than there. So it's only a $5,000 difference. But if you're thinking of downsizing, now's not a bad time to do it. Okay. So that's how the math works out. I'm going to do a summary on the next page. But if you are looking to move into the villages and you're in a market that's highly volatile and you've seen it go way up and down, the villages is a much safer harbor for your real estate dollars. Right? So let's do a summary slide and show you where it makes sense and where it doesn't make sense. I already talked about a second home. If you have a lot of money and you do want a second home down here, I'm not going to discourage you from that. But, just know that there is a possibility that home values will go down. There's also the possibility that your stock portfolio is going to go down if we hit a recession too. So, you might want to weigh which is safer. Is it going to be safer in stocks and bonds and annuities and stuff, or is it going to be safer in a second home? Okay, so let's talk about same price home moving into the villages. We just went through that example. It's a good time to do that. If you're downsizing coming into the villages, it's a fantastic time to do that. If you're upsizing into the villages, that's a maybe. Okay, so when you're upsizing into the villages, there's still a math problem to be done there. So it still could be a sound move, but it's not going to be as large as it's going to be if you're maintaining the same home or moving down in home. Same price within the villages. I'm moving from one like house. So say I've got a $500,000 designer home and I want more space. I want to put a pool in and I want to go buy a $500,000 courtyard villa, which has a much bigger backyard so I can put a pool in. It's about the same. So it's just like, that's a fairly even trade other than closing cost. Upsizing within the villages, I probably wouldn't do that right now. Hey, your money's in a safe place right now. Why dump more money into a market if you believe the pricing is going to come down? So if you think pricing is going to come down, it's not a good time to upsize. If you're downsizing within the villages, now is a good time to do that. Okay, again, and I already showed you that slide. So if you're downsizing, fantastic time. If you're moving from outside the villages to inside the villages and you're going to be in a home that's going to be about the same price as your current home, maybe a little bit more or less, it is a good time to sell. Well, I hope you found this video informative and possibly enlightening, because sometimes people just think, hey, the prices are too high in the villages. Well, the prices are high in the villages, okay, but what's going to happen to the future prices based on where you currently are and possibly moving into the villages? I always have my clients look at both sides of the equation, selling and then buying, because that's the impact. It's not just you're buying a house here. There's a lot of other things that happen before you buy a house here, meaning selling your existing house. Again, if you'd like a free 42-page guide, buying and selling a home in the villages, just email me right here at davemontysales@gmail.com and I'll send you out that copy. If you like this video, please hit like. I hope to be seeing you around the villages. Take care.